January 26, 1966, a date etched into the collective memory of a nation. What should have been a day of celebration instead became an eternal vigil.
Decades later, as we re-examine these cold files, 3 questions from that morning still haunt the timeline, persistent and unresolved.
Questions that seem to defy logical explanation.
Why did the normally responsible 9-year-old Jane allow a stranger into their immediate circle that day? Who provided the children with money that their parents explicitly stated they had not given them? And how could a man simply walk 3 children off a crowded beach in broad daylight, vanishing as if they were never there at all?
To truly grasp the enormity of the Beaumont disappearance, one must first understand the era in which it occurred. Adelaide in the mid-1960s was a place of unlocked doors and an almost absolute, unspoken trust. The suburbs, then, were simply an extension of every family's living room.
And that cultural context is vital. Jim and Nancy Beaumont were not by any measure negligent parents. They were instead products of a society that had not yet been forced to learn fear. Sending their children to the beach alone was for them a familiar rite of passage, never once conceived as a risk.
It was 10 a.m., January 26, 1966. The Adelaide heat was already a suffocating blanket, climbing toward a scorching 104 degrees Fahrenheit. Jane, the eldest at 9, had been entrusted with the responsibility. 7-year-old Arnna and 4-year-old Grant were, by all accounts, brimming with the simple excitement of the day ahead.
Their belongings were few. A single canvas bag containing towels, swimsuits, and just enough coins for the bus fare and a modest lunch. Nancy Beaumont watched them go, saw them walk to the bus stop on Diagonal Road. It was a mundane farewell, the kind that happens 1,000 times in a lifetime, until it becomes the last.
That 5-minute bus ride to Glenelg was, by all accounts, routine. 3 children, well-behaved, sat together, clutching their towels, full of the innocent anticipation of a day at the seaside.
And that is precisely what makes it so profoundly unsettling. Witnesses on that bus recalled nothing unusual at all, just 3 happy kids on their way to a holiday. Yet, looking back, this short transit became the silent bridge between the safety of their home and a mystery that would consume generations. They disembarked, stepping into the crushing heat and into an enigma that has never yielded its truth.
January 1966, a sweltering summer's day at Glenelg Beach. Thousands of families flocked there, seeking relief, a portrait of carefree Australian life. Among them were the Beaumont children, who found a spot on the lawns near the shore, settling their belongings, ready for an afternoon like any other.
And that, for a cold case, is the inherent tragedy of it. A scene so profoundly crowded, a surplus of potential witnesses. Yet, paradoxically, it created a vacuum of definitive clarity. Faces become blurs, actions are lost in the periphery. And still, for a crucial window of time, in that sea of people, the children were distinct enough to be noticed.
Before the ocean stretched out, the children lingered on the foreshore lawn. A sprinkler offered a final, fleeting moment of play. Grant's laughter, the girls dancing through the mist, an untroubled image, frozen in time.
That specific spot, the lawn with the sprinkler, it's a critical point. It places them, definitively, at 10:30 a.m. They were happy, yes, seemingly secure, and alone. We have certainty there, but that certainty, it begins to dissolve the moment they dried off, the moment they walked towards the sand.
Around 11 a.m. that morning, a subtle but critical shift occurred in the park's dynamic.
Witnesses reported seeing a man approach the children.
He was not a family member, nor a familiar face from the immediate neighborhood. He was an outsider.
He was described as a Caucasian male in his mid-30s with a thin face and fair, sun-bleached hair. He wore swimming trunks. His actions were deliberate. He didn't just pass by, he lingered. Then he lay down on the grass in unsettling proximity to the children.
In 1966, this might have been dismissed, perhaps even perceived as merely friendly interaction.
But from the perspective of a cold case with the grim knowledge of what followed, that prolonged presence, that lingering, today we recognize it as behavior unmistakably indicative of predatory intent.
The interaction, witnesses confirm, was not brief.
No, not at all. And the details are
disturbing.
Witnesses saw him playing with the children, helping them tumble on the grass, they said.
It's textbook behavior, what we now identify as a grooming process. He gained their confidence and quickly.
Even Jane, a child known for her shyness.
Especially Jane, a notably reserved, protective child, yet she appeared completely at ease. It suggests one of two things. Either he possessed an incredible, almost magnetic charisma, or perhaps a subtle, unquestioned authority, the kind a child would instinctively obey.
At approximately 12:15 p.m., Jane made her way to Wenzel's Bakery. Her movements, her purchases, they would be scrutinized for decades to come. She bought pasties and, unusually, a meat pie.
That transaction, it's haunted us. The children were always given just enough coins for their bus and a small treat. Jane, however, paid with a single-pound note. In 1966, that was a substantial amount for a child.
A sum that immediately signaled something amiss.
Exactly. The shopkeeper knew the children well. He was adamant. They never bought meat pies. Never. That pie was intended for someone else. And the money? That money came from someone else entirely.
The expectation was that the children would board the 12 p.m. bus, a routine trip home from Glenelg.
But noon came and went. That particular bus departed without them.
At home, Nancy Beaumont was, of course, keeping an eye on the clock.
There wasn't panic yet. The initial thought was simple. They'd missed the first bus, a common enough occurrence for children enjoying a day out.
But as the minutes stretched, as the clock hands inexorably crept to 2 p.m.,
that's when the silence in the house began to settle, heavy and cold. The 2 p.m. bus arrived. The children were not on it.
By 3 o'clock that afternoon, Jim Beaumont had returned early from work. The growing unease quickly escalated to frantic alarm as he and his wife drove to the beach, scanning the crowds, their hearts racing.
They found nothing, no trace of their children, no towels, no beach bag left behind on the sand. Nothing was scattered.
But the very absence of discarded items, usually a telltale sign of a struggle, suggested something far more unsettling.
Precisely. Their belongings hadn't been abandoned, they had been packed up, carefully. This wasn't the scene of a sudden abduction, where items might be dropped in a struggle. This indicates an orderly departure, a deliberate act.
As dusk settled, the police were officially engaged. What began as a routine missing persons report would quickly unfold into one of the most extensive manhunts in Australia's history.
Our initial team systematically covered every accessible inch, the shifting sands of the dunes, the length of the jetty, the labyrinthine streets. But the sea off that coast is immense, and any city offers countless shadows. The working theory initially was a tragic drowning, yet the complete lack of any recovered personal items, that always suggested a deeper, more troubling possibility.
A local postman, Mr. Thomas Jenkins, later claimed to have seen the children walking towards their home, alone, seemingly happy, around 3 o'clock that afternoon.
A sighting like that, it introduces a critical variable. If it were accurate, it suggests they somehow left the beach, perhaps even escaped their abductor, and were nearly home, just moments away from safety.
Yet, despite the potential hope it offered, investigators ultimately discounted Mr. Jenkins' timeline.
It simply conflicted with too much of the established evidence. We believe he likely saw them much earlier that morning, or perhaps even confused them with other children in the neighborhood. After so many years, we understand how unreliable recollection can become. Memory, particularly under duress or retrospection, is a deeply fragile thing.
Early in the investigation, police sketches were circulated widely. A face began to emerge, described by the few witnesses.
A distinct type, tall, blond, fit, what they called a surfy back then. That image became central to everything.
His features, an artist's rendition, soon covered every available newspaper, hoping for a recognition.
Hope, yes. Hundreds of leads poured in, each one a possibility that faded. Every blond man in Adelaide found himself under scrutiny.
Yet no one could truly name him.
No, the name eluded us. He remained, in a sense, a phantom, a man who existed solely in the haunted recollections of a few on a bright, tragic afternoon.
2 years had passed since the disappearance, when suddenly a new, agonizing turn emerged. Letters began to arrive, purportedly from Jane, stating that she and the children were being held captive. For a fleeting, desperate moment,
The parents' shattered hopes were rekindled.
Those letters were devastating. Our forensic experts at the time worked tirelessly. Eventually, they confirmed what we had begun to suspect. The correspondence was a cruel fabrication, a hoax, orchestrated by a young man desperate for attention.
So not only were they missing, but their grief was exploited.
Exactly. It was a secondary crime in a way, a profound act of psychological torture, inflicted upon parents who were already living through an unimaginable nightmare, clinging to any possibility that their babies might still be alive.
The passage of time, the turning of the decades, only deepened the mystery surrounding the disappearance.
Indeed, theories evolved, new leads surfaced, but the central question always remained unanswered.
And in 2013, and again in 2018, this evolving understanding led you to a very specific location.
Yes, a factory site in North Plimpton, intrinsically linked to a person of interest, Harry Phipps. There were new reasons to believe something might be there.
What indicated a potential breakthrough at that time?
Subsurface anomalies, irregularities in the soil that, after all these years, truly suggested a grave. The data was compelling enough to warrant a full excavation.
The nation, no doubt, watched with bated breath.
It did. There was immense public interest, immense hope. Heavy machinery tore through the concrete, layer by painstaking layer. Everyone was waiting for the earth to finally speak.
But the silence persisted.
Precisely. Once again, the earth yielded nothing substantial, only fragments, animal bones, industrial debris, nothing to bring resolution. The ultimate closure for everyone involved remained agonizingly just beyond our grasp.
The disappearance of the Beaumont children in 1966 did more than just break a family. It killed the carefree Australian childhood.
It was a profound sociological shift. The freedom that defined the 1950s and early 60s, that died on that beach. Overnight, doors were locked. The stranger danger warning became an inescapable mantra. The psychological scar on the South Australian psyche is permanent. Every parent looked at their child a little closer. Every stranger was viewed with a chilling new fear.
For decades, Nancy and Jim Beaumont remained in their home, steadfastly refusing to move.
They lived with the quiet, persistent hope that one day, Jane, Arnna, or Grant might simply knock on the door. They never even changed their phone number.
A direct, unbroken connection, spanning over 50 years.
It is a profound and heartbreaking testament to their enduring parental love.
Nancy passed away in 2019. Jim followed in 2023.
They died without ever knowing the fate of their children. The tragedy in its entirety is absolute.
Today, the official file of the 1966 disappearance remains open, but the trail has grown colder than ever before. The key witnesses from that time are now long gone, and any persons of interest from the initial inquiry are almost certainly deceased.
Without a single piece of physical evidence from 1966, modern forensic science can offer us little more than reflection. Our only remaining hope lies with a deathbed confession, perhaps, or the accidental discovery of human remains.
And without those breakthroughs, you're left with only theories.
Only theories, yes. The blond man on the beach that day, did he take his secret to the grave? Or perhaps he is still out there somewhere, an old man now with a terrible memory, or a truth he simply cannot bring himself to reveal.
The Beaumont children walked into the summer haze that day in 1966 and never walked out. Their story remains a stark reminder of how quickly the ordinary can turn into the horrific.
Even after all these years, those same central questions endure. Was the man seen that day, the blond man, a local predator deeply embedded in the community, or merely a transient passing through?
And the ultimate agonizing silence surrounding Jane, Arnna, and Grant.
What is their final resting place? That question, above all others, continues to haunt every person touched by this case.